Welcome to Network 7 Media Group special series, where we dissect power, challenge narratives, and confront the truths that shape our world. In fact, today we begin with a story that shocked the foundation of international law, the United States' audacious strike on Venezuela under President Donald Trump. So was it a deliberation or a violation of the United Nations Charter? Was it a democracy in action or sovereignty shattered? As the world watches, we ask, who decides the fate of a nation, the people within or the power beyond? So the larger question is the US attack on Venezuela under Trump presidency, a violation of sovereignty or a new world precedent? In fact, in one of the most audacious moves of modern geopolitics, the United States under President Donald Trump launched a military strike against Venezuela, a sovereign nation already reeling under economic collapse and political turmoil. The decision, justified by Washington as a mission to liberate Venezuelans from dictatorship, has ignited a global debate. Was this an act of humanitarian intervention or a blatant violation of the United Nations Charter? We ask sovereignty and the UN Charter. The UN Charter is unequivocal. No nation has the right to attack another sovereign state unless in self-defense or with explicit Security Council authorization. Venezuela, under Nicolas Maduro's contested presidency, was undoubtedly facing an international dissent and an internal dissent of a big order. But sovereignty remains a cornerstone of international law. By bypassing the UN framework, the US set a dangerous precedent, suggesting that unilateral military action can be justified by subjective interpretations of democracy and dictatorship. This raises a fundamental broader question. Even if a leader is authoritarian, does external intervention undermine the very principle of self-determination? Shouldn't it be the Venezuelan people, through their own struggles and choice, who decide their fate? Precedents for the world diaspora. The strike on Venezuela reverberates far beyond Latin America. It signals to the global diaspora that powerful nations may increasingly act outside multinational institutions, reshaping the rules of engagement. If Venezuela can be attacked without UN sanctions, what prevents similar actions against other nations deemed dictatorial by Washington or its allies? Such precedents erode trust in international institutions, weaken the legitimacy of the UN, and embolden unilateralism. For smaller nations, this is a chilling reminder that sovereignty is fragile when geopolitics is dictated by might rather than law. What democrats have taken such a step? The question of whether democrats should have pursued such an audacious attack is complex. Historically, democratic administrations have leaned more on multilateralism and diplomacy through intervention in Iraq. Libya and Kosovo show that party lines do not always prevent military action. So what distinguishes Trump's Venezuela strike is its overt defiance of international consequence and its framing as a unilateral crusade. Democrats may have sought broader coalition building or UN legitimacy, but underlying reality remains. US foreign policy, regardless of party, has often blurred the line between intervention and aggression. The larger implication. This episode is not merely about Venezuela, it is about the future of global governance. If the UN Charter can be sidelined, if sovereignty can be overridden by unilateral power, then the world risks descending into a new era of selective justice. The diaspora, scattered across continents, must grapple with implications. Will their homelands be next line for liberation through force? Here is my quote. The US strike on Venezuela under Trump's presidency is not just a military maneuver. It is a seismic rupture in the moral fabric of international law. Attacking a sovereign nation without UN sanction, even under the guise of liberating its people, is actually a blatant violation of the charter that binds the world together. History will judge this not by the rhetoric of democracy, but by precedent it sets. That might can override right. The fate of Venezuela should have been decided by Venezuelan peoples themselves, not imposed by external power. Let's remember one thing. History will not remember the rhetoric of democracy. It will remember the precedent of power. The diaspora reminds us that sovereignty is not abstract. It is lived, felt and feared. As we analyze this big developing global story, we ask, would America's Democrats have chosen the same path? Or is this audacity authentically, uniquely Trumpian? The US strike on Venezuela under Trump's presidency was more than a military maneuver. It was a rupture in the moral fabric of international law. History will not remember the rhetoric of democracy, I again reiterate. It will remember the president of power. As I say, the fate of Venezuela should have been decided by Venezuelans themselves, not imposed by external power. Thank you for joining us. This is Network 7 Media Group, where disruption beats truth.